we're going to be looking at a saint who is very similar to Padre Pio in a way. And his name is Saint Francis of Paola. He lived a few hundred years before Padre Pio, but he was also an incredible miracle worker. Hello friends, on this channel, Lives of the Great Saints. We're going to look at these saints because often during history, when there are crises in history, Providence himself gives us a great saint to lead us around these things so that we can be restored once again with God. And so we want to see these incredible examples, their heroic examples. We are focusing in on Saint Francis of Paola, a miracle worker whose prophecies influenced nations. If you are new to our channel, then please do subscribe to this channel. Help us with this apostolate as well by liking the video, sharing the video with your friends and colleagues. These stories come from the book Saint Francis of Paola, God's Miracle Worker Supreme. Previously, we saw how Saint Francis of Paola, a goat escaped, jumps into his arms, the goat was being hunted, and Saint Francis of Paola saw this as the turning point. His public life had begun. And soon visitors began arriving at Saint Francis's makeshift hermitage, which is just a barn on his parents' property. These people were now seeking counsel and wisdom and prayers from Francis of Paola. 3 visitors arrived, and they wanted to join Francis in his work and to adopt his ways. And so the creation of a new religious order had begun. Saint Francis insisted on certain things, that they be lay religious, and that prayer and charity were to be the 2 cornerstones, the fundamental cornerstones on which they would build this new religious order. And they adopted many of the Franciscan ways. They took the Franciscan habit. It was practically sackcloth in the original days of St. Francis. They took the Franciscan hood, and they also used to work barefoot like the original Franciscans. So they had certain religious functions in common. And then they would all retire to their cells where they would continue praying and meditating. And it soon became apparent that the happiness of this group impressed people who visited. And so other people started to want to join this new order. Now Francis realized there's going to be a problem. We need to now erect a proper monastery. And so he set about designing a monastery according to what he understood he'd be needing and to the means, the funds that were available. And the work began. They began construction, building things, laying foundations. When something very strange happened. A figure dressed in Franciscan habit appeared from nowhere, almost like an apparition, and approached them and said, "Brothers, why are you building a monastery with such limited dimensions to serve and honor the infinite majesty of Him on high?" So Francis answered, "How can I do more? I must depend on the generosity of the faithful." "Well, have providence in God," the unknown visitor told him. "Demolish what you have built and rebuild now according to the plan I will draw for you." This visitor then traced a far bigger building while the others watched, at which point the visitor just vanished, just disappeared. It was some sort of an apparition. And within a few days, other people, the Baron of Belmont and other wealthy people in the area, they visited Francis, offering him money and materials to build with. And people arrived volunteering their labors. During the building of the church, the saint also performed many miracles. We're just going to give an account of some of them. There was an enormous stone in the middle of the area that was proposed for the monastery. And all the laborers, all the people working there were unable to move this rock. At which point, Francis knelt. He raised his hands and he said a prayer. And after this, the gigantic stone somehow raised itself out of the ground and then was easily rolled away. And that stone is still present on the property. On another occasion, a gigantic boulder, a gigantic rock came rolling down the mountain slope towards the workers and about to flatten them. Francis raised his hands and shouted, "In the name of charity, stop!" And this rock stopped dead in its tracks. Then once the workmen were hungry, so they caught Francis's pet lamb that was running around, had the name Martinello. They roasted and they ate poor little Martinello. And they threw the remains into the lime kiln, into the furnace to cover their tracks. Well, Francis arrived a little later on and realized that Martinello was not to be seen anywhere. He asked around, realized the lamb was missing, and was told, well, the remains are in the kiln, in the furnace. So Francis walked over to the furnace. He looked inside and then he called out, "Martinello, come out." And apparently the lamb jumped out completely unhurt, untouched. On another occasion, the workers complained they had to go so far to find drinking water. So St. Francis, he was carrying a stick and he said a prayer. He prayed and then he struck the ground with his stick. And like Moses of old, a stream popped out of the ground right there. And this stream still exists today. During construction, it was a dangerous sight. A beam fell on one of the workmen and crushed him to death. St. Francis went over. He knelt beside the mutilated corpse, the mutilated body. He turned his eyes towards heaven and prayed fervently. And then he took some herbs and he touched the body in various parts with these herbs. And then St. Francis stepped back. He waved his hands and the man arose from the ground, unhurt. And there was one where the workers realized there was something wrong with the kiln. It was about to collapse, stop their work, destroy their work. And so they told Francis, and apparently he went into the blazing furnace, did the repairs and came out unharmed. And other incredible miracles are said to have taken place. And so the building of the first monastery proceeded, accompanied by many, many miracles. If you subscribe and you click that reminder bell, then you're going to see future videos in which we tell you how St. Francis of Paola became the patron of seafarers. That's also quite an incredible story. And also do like our video, share it with your friends and colleagues. You'll be helping this apostolate if you do that.
Egressus